Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad to be here with all of you tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Glad to be back. We're going to have yet another great late night conversation. So good to be here with all of you. Let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, 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 everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. I have got a bit of a headache. It was a long day at the United Nations, I must say, and I'm doing a bit of fasting. I guess intermittent fasting. I'm drinking water, but I'm only having one big meal a day. I'm at lunchtime, and yeah, my head is not feeling great right now, but I figured it's been too long since we checked in. So I'm glad to be here with all of you tonight, and we're going to have a quick check-in. We're going to have a live stream tonight about world events and what's going on in the world. I'll probably find time to stream at some point tomorrow. Not sure what my schedule will be on the holiday tomorrow, but I will probably check in with you, and we will get back in the habit of doing these all the time. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. The way we do these streams is I give my opening remarks, followed by the roll call, followed by answering your questions for the rest of the night. So if you are on YouTube and you have something you would like me to speak about in the second half of our program, send a super chat. If you are on Rumble and there is something you would like me to speak about in the second half of our program, send a Rumble rant. If you're on Facebook and there is something you would like me to speak about in the second half of our program, you're shit out of luck. I'm just kidding. You can actually just go to Facebook or YouTube. I can't take super chats from Facebook, but you can just go to one of the other platforms. And the second half of the show is all you guys. It is all you. It is me engaging with all of you, answering all of your questions. Good stuff. So be sure to send me something to get me talking in the second half of our show. That's the way we do things. Now, I do have a very, very good announcement to make to all of you tonight. I am overjoyed, but the morning messages of the Center for Political Innovation are back. Starting tomorrow morning, we're going to have morning messages with the Center for Political Innovation once again. I think this is great. We started this last fall, and we kept it going for a while in the lead up to our CPI convention, and then the energy kind of ran out, but that's okay. But they're getting going again. And the first, well, it'll be the 75th morning message, but it'll be the first one that we've had in a while, will be airing tomorrow morning on the CPI YouTube channel. So tune in every morning on the CPI YouTube channel for a morning message. We say, start your day with revolutionary hope and optimism. And that's the way we do it. So tune in every morning at 6 a.m. For the premiere, or afterwards. Afterwards is fine. You can watch it just whenever you happen to wake up. 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when the morning messages premiere, but we try to, they're up afterwards. And we are going to keep doing the tradition of CPI morning messages. I am so delighted. And we actually, thanks to the great Peter Coffin, there's a method through which people can upload morning messages. CPI members can upload morning messages. They go directly to the YouTube channel. And that is an amazing step forward. So Morning messages will continue. Bong. That is really, really amazing. I'm really excited. People will be able to start their day with revolutionary hope and optimism from the Center for Political Innovation every day. So to tune in tomorrow morning for the first one we've had in a while, that's going to be good. And hey, if you want to join a community of people that are dedicated to anti-imperialism, join the Center for Political Innovation. We have got a lot of exciting changes in the works. We are changing our organizational culture, which is great. And we are becoming an outreach organization. We're finally going to do out of the movement to the masses. And it's very, very exciting. Very, very excited. Very, very excited. So if you would like to become part of our efforts to spread anti-imperialist politics and build a community of solidarity, by all means, become a member of CPI today, just $10 a month. We'd love to have you as a member. We have Zoom calls every weekend. We've got locals around the country. Wow, a lot of exciting things are in the works, right? We printed this special booklet, Do You Believe in Growth? Why Russia and China Keep Rising While U.S. Society Stifles Innovation. We printed it and we distributed copies at the Libertarian Party Convention. I am about, thanks to a donation we received, to put in yet another order at the printer for copies of this pamphlet to be distributed at the Republican and Democratic National Convention by our CPI members. I am headed to the printer. We're going to run another 1,000 CPI pamphlets to hand out at the Republican and Democrat convention. I'm very, very excited. This is really, really exciting. So do you believe in growth? The whole text of the pamphlet is on the CPI website. If you go to the CPI website, you can see the text of the pamphlet under library, and you can download a PDF. You can read the pamphlet there. But I'm going to print 1,000 more of them, and people on the streets at the DNC and the RNC will get their hands on one of these. And it's going to be great. It's going to be very, very exciting. And the book version, the full-length book version that has a couple more pieces added to it, is now available on Amazon. So this is very, very exciting. Our outreach continues. We are spreading optimistic, constructive socialism and anti-imperialism all across America. I am just thrilled with everything that we are doing as an organization. And the project continues. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. The way this works, for those of you who may not be familiar, is I give my opening remarks. My opening remarks are then followed by the roll call. And then after that, I answer your super chat questions for the rest of the night. So if you have a super chat or a Rumble rant or a Rockfin tip, by all means, send me a question so I can answer it. And then I can answer it. The second half of the show is all you. As I said, I'm not going to be on here too long tonight. I've got a bit of a headache. I had a big long day, but I'm glad that I have this opportunity to just check in with all of you and talk about things. And so while I'm here, I do want to give a shout out to Dan Kovalik, the great anti-imperialist writer that I saw at the UN today. He gave a dynamic presentation about Donbass. I also want to give a shout out to Christopher Halali, who also gave a dynamic presentation about Donbass and what's been going on. I want to give a shout out to Danny Shaw, the professor who was there. He attended the press conference at the United Nations. That was pretty great. I also want to give a shout out to Khalil, a new young anti-imperialist activist that I also got to meet. It was great to see all those people at the UN. Christopher Halali and myself had a great chat on RT about his role as the international secretary of the Communist Party, the Party of Communist USA, but really the Communist Party, right? The Communist Party of the United States. And we had a great chat on RT. I'm hoping to get the video of that soon to show on these streams. That was a really great live chat we had after the panel presentation at the United Nations. It was really, really a great day where anti-imperialist messaging got out at the UN. It was really, really great. And I was really glad to be there to cover it as a reporter. And show, what people had to say, exposing the crimes of American imperialism, funding the Nazis in Ukraine, etc. I was really, really happy to be there. But it was a long day, right? I went and covered the press conference. Then I had to do a live, shot afterwards. And, it's, hot weather out there and, trudging around the city. And I'm doing this intermittent fast. And so, because of that, I'm a little bit tired, but that's good. It's a good tired because I got to score a victory for anti-imperialism. I got to live true to my principles, got to spend some time with my comrades afterwards. I gave a copy of our new CPI textbook, Out of the Movement to the Masses, to Danny Shaw. So he'll have the opportunity to read it. That's going to be good. And so it was after today, after that great event at the United Nations, and after the conversations I had with comrades, I thought I might just do kind of a rundown of what it is that we stand for as the Center for Political Innovation, what our beliefs are, and where we stand. So I think we'll start out with the fact that human beings are unique and special in a way that no other species is. Human beings have the ability to force the environment to serve them. All other species, they merely interact with the environment around them. But humanity has the ability to force the environment to serve it. And that makes humanity stand out. And when we force the environment to serve us, to give us a longer life expectancy, to give us a more comfortable life, to increase our living standards, that process through which we force the environment to serve us, that is called labor, human labor. And it is labor that is unique. Human beings force the environment to serve them through a process called human labor. And our human labor is constantly being reinvented. Ants have been making their ant farms the same way for thousands of years. And beavers have been making their beaver dams the same way for thousands and thousands of years. Rabbits have been digging their rabbit holes the same way for thousands of years. But in just 7,000 or 8,000 years, human beings have gone from hunter-gatherers in the woods to space travel and iPhones and artificial intelligence and all the wonders of the modern world, because we are constantly using our intellectual creative power to reinvent our relationship with nature and to force the environment to serve us in a more efficient manner. And that this is the nature of humanity. Growth. We are a growing species. Our population grows, our life expectancy grows, our level of comfort and stability in the world grows, our ability to interact with our environment grows. Human beings are constantly growing as a species. And that is the nature of mankind. Growth. And we not only grow in terms of advancing technology, we also grow by inventing more efficient, new social systems, which are based on new modes of production. We are constantly advancing toward a higher plane. The way we should view the world around us is that it's constantly in a state of adjustment. It's constantly moving toward a higher state of perfection. The world around us is constantly adjusting and resolving in order to reach a more perfect state of existence. And part of that is humans reinventing their social system in order to achieve a higher mode of production. For the majority of human history, the majority of human existence, we were hunter-gatherers. But then we got so good at hunting and gathering, there was a scarcity. And so from there, we had already developed sticks and rocks in order to carry out our hunting and gathering. And we gotten so good at hunting and gathering, there was a scarcity. So from there, we started growing our own food. And with the dawn of agriculture came a higher mode of production. And first there was a technological revolution, the invention of agriculture, and then there was a social revolution with the creation of a new class. Suddenly you had landowners, peasants, you had a family, etc. And then there was a political revolution with the establishment of the system of slavery, where you had people who owned the land and you had people who worked on the land. Right? There generally are three phases in moving toward a higher stage. First, there's a technological revolution, then a social revolution, and then a political revolution. And slavery was a new system, a higher mode of production, where people grew their own food and the human population could expand and living standards could go up. But slavery was defeated by feudalism, which was another higher mode of production. And feudalism was replaced with capitalism. And capitalism was a great advance over what existed before. No doubt about it. Capitalism led to all kinds of new inventions. Capitalism led to an expansion of the population and of productive forces. Capitalism was a great advance over what was there before. But capitalism ran into its own problems. And what problems are those? Well, under capitalism, for the first time in human history, you're presented with a problem that would have been impossible under any other social system, which is people becoming impoverished because too much wealth exists. People becoming homeless because there are too many houses. People becoming hungry because there is too much food. This doesn't happen under any other system. In any other system that existed, more wealth led to more prosperity. But under our capitalist system, where profits define production, there are always more products being created than there are wages being paid out in the process of production. And the worker can never buy back what he produces. And the market is inevitably glutted with products that cannot be sold. There are more products created than there are wages paid out whenever you make any product. And this problem is built into the capitalist system, and the boom bust cycle is rooted in it, right? And that there is a crisis of overproduction that happens every few years when the market becomes glutted with products and the worker cannot afford to buy those products. People can't afford them. So businesses fail, people lose their jobs, there's unemployment, etc., until the market corrects itself. However, in the process of dealing with this problem of overproduction, the capitalist is constantly advancing technology. He seeks to improve his ability to create products because he's competing with the other capitalists. And because the capitalist is constantly trying to improve his ability to create products, he uses labor-saving technology. He wants to hire fewer workers. He wants to replace human labor power with machines. And fewer workers are hired. However, the fewer workers being hired, the problem of overproduction becomes compounded. In addition to that, the profit that the capitalist makes can only be extracted from the labor power put in by human beings. So even though the capitalist might produce more products, if the amount of human labor that goes into those products is decreasing, the result is that he makes lower profits. And the rate of profit that he makes on every product decreases. And the result of this ongoing problem of overproduction, the tendency of the falling rate of profit as a result of technological advancement, leads to a situation where wherever you have a gigantic leap in technology. You have a long-term economic crisis as a result. And this is a bit of a problem. And of course, we don't live in just regular, ordinary industrial capitalism. We live in the era of imperialism, capitalism in its monopolistic stage, where banks and corporations, an international financial oligarchy of trusts, cartels, and syndicates have stretched their tentacles across the planet in order to make super profits, in order to dominate the global market. And part of the main thing that the imperialists of our time, the ultra monopolies, do is they hold back development. They keep the world poor. They underdevelop countries. Walter Rodney wrote a very good book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Africa was rising and developing, and it was the colonizers and the imperialists that destroyed Africa's economy and beat it into subservience. The people of India and Bangladesh had been weaving for thousands of years, but the British Empire went there and burned all the looms and textile mills and forced them to import their cloth from Britain, destroyed the looms. Mexico has been growing its own food for thousands of years, since before Christopher Columbus ever showed up. But now they import their food from agribusiness corporations in America thanks to NAFTA. The people of Nigeria live in the country that exports more of the most valued commodity in the world than any other country, that no other African country exports as much oil as Nigeria does. Yet the people of Nigeria are some of the poorest in Africa. The Niger Delta region, where you find all this oil being extracted, is also a site of extreme poverty, of people living in just dire, awful conditions. Why is that? It's because the oil of Nigeria is under the control of BP, Shell, Chevron, and ExxonMobil, not the people of Nigeria. Their raw material is at the hands of the imperialists, but they have not been allowed to develop their own productive forces. Imperialism is holding back development around the world, seizing the market as a captive market for the imperialists, seizing territory and spheres of influence, territorial partition, so the imperialists can dominate the world and keep the world poor so that they can stay rich, creating one gigantic open international system where the profits of the entire world flow into the gigantic pockets of huge multinational corporations that extract profit from across the planet, and living standards are going down. And ultra-monopolistic corporations are getting wealthier. This is imperialism, capitalism in its monopolistic stage. And it's in response to the rise of imperialism that a new social system emerged. It was in the nightmare of the first imperialist World War I. It was amid that nightmare that a socialist society came into existence in Russia. And when the Russian Revolution happened, the first conference that the Bolsheviks had was the Congress of the Peoples of the East in Baku in Azerbaijan. And at that conference, there were a lot of Muslims. And there were a lot of people from different parts of Asia who didn't agree with them. But they said, we want to support anyone who will fight against imperialism. Because imperialism, monopolistic capitalism, holding back development around the world, that is the main danger to humanity. And the Bolsheviks mobilized and built an anti-imperialist movement. And they supported the Emir of Afghanistan in his fight against the British Empire, even though he was a conservative monarchist, but he was fighting the British imperialists. He was fighting to free his homeland of Afghanistan from the imperialists, so they supported him. And the Bolsheviks and the Soviet Union, they supported African people and their struggle against colonialism. And they supported the peoples of Asia and their fight for national liberation. And in the Western countries, when the Great Depression hit, the Soviet Union led the Communist International. And workers in the United States and Britain and France and Germany went out demanding jobs, healthcare, education for the unemployed. Their slogan was, "Don't starve, fight." And they organized and mobilized and resisted, demanding that the people not be allowed to starve because of a crisis that the capitalists created. And it's because of the communists who organized during the Great Depression that we have unemployment insurance. It's because of the communists who organized during the Great Depression that we have Social Security, that we have the work, that we have, all the social benefits, the minimum wage, and so many of the things that were won during that period. And the communist movement, the anti-imperialist movement, focused on racism as being an enemy of all working people, when nobody would talk about racism. No one would talk about Jim Crow segregation. In the Soviet Union, Stalin welcomed Langston Hughes and Paul Robeson and many great African-American writers and intellectuals to talk about Jim Crow segregation and the oppression of Black people. The Soviet Union saw Black people as a colonized people, an oppressed nationality within U.S. borders that had the right to self-determination. And the Communist Party supported the Scottsboro Nine African-American men falsely charged with rape, and it got them acquitted ultimately and released from death row. The Communist Party organized big protests in Congress. A friend of the Communist Party, an elected official from New York City named Vito Marcantonio, who represented Harlem in the U.S. Congress, he put forward the famous anti-lynching bill to stop lynching in the U.S. South. And the Communist Party made the issue of racism something that they organized to fight against. And when a racist government took power in Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, a government based on the notion of racial supremacy, a government that ultimately carried out the Holocaust and exterminated people on the basis of their race, it was the Soviet Union and the global anti-imperialist movement that they created that mobilized a global united front against fascism, that mobilized anti-fascist resistance fighters. In Germany, there was an underground resistance movement that fought against Hitler, and the people leading it were communists. In France, there was an underground resistance movement, and it was led by communists. In Korea, there were people that fought against the Japanese colonizers, and they were led by communists. In Japan, there were people who sabotaged the military equipment, and those people were communists. And it was communists who fought against racism, against Jim Crow segregation, and ultimately against fascism. And when the Nazis were defeated, it was a hammer-sickle flag that was unfurled over Berlin. And it was communists who marched in to Berlin and defeated the Nazi menace, saved humanity from fascism. 27 million people died in the Soviet Union in the Second World War to drive fascism from the earth. And during that war, the Soviet Union changed a lot of things. The Russian Orthodox Church that had been suppressed by the Bolsheviks because of their dialectical materialist Marxist view, because they viewed the church as being part of the old regime, the Bolsheviks had heavily suppressed Christianity. However, it was during the Second World War that the Russian Orthodox Church was brought back into legality. And a film called Ivan the Terrible that portrayed many Christian prayers and Orthodox ceremonies was released to promote the war effort, created by Sergei Eisenstein, the filmmaker. And it was the Soviet Union that defeated fascism. It was the Soviet Union that mobilized against Jim Crow segregation. And as a result of the Soviet Union's existence, China broke free in 1949. Today, China is the second largest economy in the world. Millions of people have been lifted out of poverty by the Chinese Communist Party with its state central planning and its poverty alleviation. China has the world's largest telecommunications manufacturer. It has the world's largest hydroelectric power plant. It has the world's fastest trains. China is raising people up out of poverty at a very rapid rate, and it's doing it with a state-run, socialist, centrally planned economy. And all across the planet, in the aftermath of the Second World War, there was a wave of anti-colonial national liberation movements. You had in Ghana, you had Kwame Nkrumah. In Libya, you had the great Muammar Gaddafi. In Cuba, you had Fidel Castro. In Nicaragua, you had the Sandinistas. You had the Korean people, the first country in the world to deliver an epic defeat to the United States on the battlefield, drove U.S. imperialism back to the 38th parallel with the help of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. There are so many examples of the successes of socialism. Under Gaddafi, Libya had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. It built the great man-made river, the world's largest irrigation system. Cuba's healthcare system is admired all over the world for its achievements. Ban Ki-moon of the United Nations said that the world's greatest medical school is located in Havana, Cuba. And socialism has changed quite a bit. The fall of the Soviet Union was a devastating blow. The imperialists claimed that when the Soviet Union was dissolved, they would bring human rights and freedom to the former Soviet Union. They would provide economic opportunity with their free markets, and it didn't happen. What they brought was unemployment. What they brought was sex trafficking. What they brought was economic devastation. The fall of the Soviet Union was a disaster in the 1990s. It was a mass crisis of hunger and unemployment. All of the mythology about capitalism and the free market bringing prosperity was debunked in the 1990s when the Soviet Union dissolved and the Eastern Bloc socialist countries dissolved and went from having a state centrally planned socialist economy, transitioning to having instead a free market economy. And it was a nightmare economically. And the whole world saw the economic devastation that the greed of imperialism imposed on Russia in the 1990s. And how did they fix it? They fixed the economy with state control. Russian President Putin came in and he put oil and gas under state ownership. And he reasserted government control over the economy. He used oil and gas revenue to reboot and reconstruct the industrial base of Russia's economy. And now Russia is speeding forward once again. Russia has a huge agricultural sector. Russia has its national priorities project, eliminating the situation where people don't have what they need to survive. Right now, Russia is constructing and building. They've built the largest bridge in Europe, the Crimea Bridge. They've done so many amazing things. And China adjusted its socialist system. China adjusted its socialist system. And with market mechanisms complementing the overall state central plan, they have had dramatic achievements. In the Middle East region, the axis of resistance led by the Islamic Republic of Iran with their construction jihad. They have had dramatic achievements. And the Houthis of Yemen, some of the poorest people in the world, armed with their revolutionary anti-imperialist ideology, their Shia Islamic revolutionary ideology, are now dealing dramatic blows to Israel and standing with the Palestinians. The future of the world is anti-imperialism. Why? Because imperialism is about destruction. Imperialism is about impoverishment. Imperialism is about fomenting chaos and keeping the world poor. That's what imperialism is about, and human beings do not want to be poor. Human beings want more than they already have. Human beings want jobs and healthcare and education. Human beings want to see their children live a better life than they lived. Human beings want access to medical care. Human beings want access to modern technology. Human beings want to advance and march forward. They do not want to be constrained and kept in poverty. And that is why imperialism is decaying. And there is a new economic system emerging in the world, a new economic order centered around Russia and China. The BRICS countries have formed a bloc. Russia, China, India, South Africa, Brazil. And these countries, some of which are socialist countries, some of which are anti-imperialist countries, some of which are just countries that want development, they have aligned together to form a new world beyond the US dollar, a new world beyond the rule of Wall Street money sharks and billionaire bankers. And none of this would exist without communism. None of this would exist without the October Revolution. None of this would exist without the ideology of Marxism-Leninism. The world has changed, and the communist movement has changed. And I'll get to that in a second. There's a lot of things that have changed. But don't believe for a moment that any of the explosive episodes of growth that we're seeing, none of the high-speed railway China is building, none of the new highways that are being constructed, none of the new schools and universities that are being built, none of the hydroelectrical power plants that China built in Brazil, none of that would be possible without the October Revolution. Marxism-Leninism laid the foundation for global anti-imperialism. And for that, we must give credit where credit is due. We must recognize the achievements. Any criticism that we make of the Soviet Union and of China and of Cuba and of North Korea must be based on recognizing that they did not fail. They lifted millions from poverty. They invented space travel. They wiped out illiteracy. They defeated the Nazis. That everything that might be a basis for criticism is on the foundation of recognizing that their successes were astronomical. Anyone who says communism failed doesn't know what they're talking about. Communism lifted millions from poverty. Communism electrified millions of miles of territory in the earth. Communism enabled millions of people to learn to read and write. Communism brought running water to millions of people. Communism had huge economic achievements, and it continues to do so in its new adjusted form. So any criticism that we make of the Soviet Union, of China, must be made on the foundation of understanding that their achievements were massive. And anyone who does not understand that or recognize that, anyone who doesn't realize that the Chinese Communist Party took the sick man of Asia and turned it into the second largest economy in the world, anyone who doesn't realize that the Soviet Union became a superpower, and then they had the free market and it was a nightmare, and then Putin fixed it by reasserting state control and planning. Anyone who wants to criticize Putin or the Soviet Union must recognize that. No criticism that does not recognize the achievements, the astounding achievements of socialism in the 20th century. No criticism like that is valid. And the communist world has adjusted many things, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later. But the important question that defines this live stream is, how does America fit in to the new world? And it's interesting, right? I titled this stream, How Does America Fit Into the Rising New World? And multiple people decided they were going to write, it doesn't. Well, you know, I will give you a medal for being edgy. I will give you a medal for feeling so revolutionary. But how does saying that change things in the United States or make things better? Do you live here in the United States? As someone who lives in the United States, as someone who's against imperialism, how does saying it doesn't, how does that benefit you? How does that help us improve the situation? At this time, you are right. The way the United States is currently modeled as an imperialist homeland at the center of this nightmare global imperialist system, it doesn't. And if we just leave that as it is, things here in the United States are going to continue to deteriorate. And there's going to be more unemployment. There's going to be more opioids. There's going to be more police brutality. There's going to be more imprisonment and mass incarceration. There's going to be more hungry people on the street. There's going to be more infrastructure in decay. And you're fine with that, right? Because you get to sit there on the internet and feel like, well, I'm an edgy revolutionary. Well, I got to tell you, that is not your job. As someone living in the center of imperialism, your job is to figure out how you can defeat imperialism, how you can make a new America that is not imperialist, and how we can get out of the nightmare of imperialism in decay and transition America to being a society that does fit in with this new world, a society that can trade with Russia and China and Iran and Venezuela and do so in a way that is beneficial, a society that doesn't put profits over people, a society that doesn't spend billions on wars while the population is becoming impoverished, a society where people don't become homeless because there are too many houses and hungry because there is too much food, but rather a society where people can see a better life for their families, a society where people are connected with each other and have love for one another and aren't alienated and whipped up against each other in the toxic ways that our society currently does it. It's very easy to just complain. It's very, very easy to just be pessimistic. It's very, very easy to just sit back because if you think there is no future, if you think there's nothing that can be done, you have no obligation. There's no risk. You have no responsibility. You can just sit back and complain. But if you understand that there is, in fact, the possibility of a new America emerging, if you realize that there is a rising alternative to imperialism around the world, if you realize that, it hits you as something very, very dangerous. Responsibility. Responsibility. You could stop World War III. You could help bring on the industrialization of America. You could help moving toward a society where we don't have hungry people on the street. You could. And people don't want to recognize that. But right now, there is a very big divide among the rich and powerful in this country. And the divide is between growth and degrowth. Most of the rich and powerful just want to make more money. But there is an ultra-rich faction, the Eastern establishment, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Carnegies, the Silicon Valley tech monopolists, Bill Gates, Carlos Slim, Jeff Bezos. There is an ultra-rich minority that is openly talking about how the only way they can save the system is with degrowth. The World Economic Forum is dreaming up some sinister, dark schemes right now. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it. You'll live in a pod. You'll eat bugs. They're trying to figure out what to do with all these excess people that don't have a place at their assembly line anymore. They can't make money off their hiring their labor power any longer. There's all these people they don't have any room for. So, of course, what are they talking about? Overpopulation, degrowth. And the ultra-rich, the imperialist monopolies, the ultra-rich and powerful, they believe the only way to save their system is with degrowth. Whereas the majority of the rich and powerful, they just want to make more money. And this divide defines American politics right now. The lower-level capitalists have rallied around Donald Trump. They've rallied around QAnon. They've rallied around all kinds of dissident elements because they want to keep growing. And the ultra-rich are trying to beat them back. And that divide between the growth faction and the degrowth faction is the big divide in American politics. And that's why people predict possible civil war. That's why January 6th happened. That's why the Black Lives Matter rebellion was allowed to take place. Obviously, it happened in response to the killing of George Floyd, but it was allowed to explode and take place because of the fact that there was a division in the ruling class. And divisions in the ruling class are very important because they create an opening for the people. But the divide right now within the elite is the question of growth versus degrowth. But interestingly, that's the same question around the world. Because why do you think the BRICS exists? Because they want growth. Why do countries fight to break free from imperialism? Because they want growth. They want control of their own economy. They want growth. Humanity wants to expand. Humanity wants to build and construct. That is the nature of humanity. Growth, construction, development. That is the nature of humanity. And human beings will not accept being impoverished. They will not accept being told they should just accept the conditions. Their children shouldn't live any better than they do. Human beings have an inherent drive to create, to build, to construct. And so right now they are trying to beat it out of us with pessimism. They're pumping into our phones with a spirit of hopelessness that they're spreading throughout our civilization. With social media, with toxic culture, with academic notions of eco-fascism. They're trying to do everything they can to beat the humanity out of us. Psychologically, and in some cases even physically. They want us to not want to expand. They want us to accept their sinister degrowth agenda But humanity will not accept it because it is growth that defines our very existence as a species. And because growth defines us, we will push back, we will fight back, we will drive and march forward, and imperialism will be defeated. Our job here in the center of American imperialism is to construct an anti-monopoly coalition. People who want growth, people who want healthcare, jobs, education, people who will not accept the sinister low-wage police state they're trying to impose. The divisions within the ruling class right now lay the basis for a coalition to be formed, an anti-monopoly coalition, to reject the sinister schemes for degrowth, the low-wage police state, World War III, and instead put forward an agenda of growth. Right now, the lower-level capitalists, they just want a libertarian approach. They want the government off their backs. They understand that the government works for the ultra-monopolies. They understand that the government is going to rig things for the ultra-rich and promote degrowth. So they want the government off our backs. But it's only a matter of time before the lower levels of capital realize that that ain't enough. It's not enough to simply ask for the government to get off our backs. They need a government that punches up. A government of action that fights for working families. We need a government of action to fight for working families. If we want growth again in America, if we want economic development and expansion, we need an economy that is organized in the interest of all of us and not in the interests of the ultra-rich. We have these great new cards for the Center for Political Innovation. And they say, our 4-point plan: 1, mass mobilization to rebuild the country; 2, public ownership of natural resources; 3, public control of banking and debt forgiveness; 4, an economic bill of rights. If you put oil and gas under public ownership, if you hired the unemployed to build new highways and bridges and railroads, if you put the lending of money into the hands of the public to strategically plan out how construction and the lending of money could take place, if you enacted an economic bill of rights and invested in the American people, made sure every able-bodied person was working in a job that led to construction and bettering life, you made sure every able-bodied person was using their labor power for the good of the country. You provided health care to have a healthy population. You provided education to have a smart population, churning out the best engineers, the best scientists, as we once did. If you enacted an economic bill of rights to invest in America, if you put the natural wealth of America's coal and oil and timber and natural gas into the public budget, if you created a state bank that strategically lended money in the overall interest of the nation, if you mobilized millions of people, you hired millions of people to rebuild this country, you brought the military home from overseas and you put them to work rebuilding America's bridges and highways, constructing a high-speed rail system. If you did that, we would boom as an economy. But the only way that that can happen is if you have a government that is backed up by a mass movement of the people that is strong enough to beat back capitalist power. A government that is strong enough to push back against the big oil monopolies, against the big bankers. That's what you're going to need. A government of action that fights for working families. And that is what we seek to build with the Center for Political Innovation. We need a government of action to fight for working families. We need a government of action to fight for working families. Families are good. When kids are being raised by their parents, when people have what they need, when people are caring for each other and having affection for each other, that's good. That's good. We're for working families. We're for economic opportunity. We're for communities learning to work together. We're for reconciliation. We're for kindness and brotherhood, and love and acceptance. We're for all of those things. And we seek to build a mass movement. And we're not interested in winning over the tiny little left movement. We're not woke. We're advocates of a socialist planned economy, but we are not woke. We're not interested in waging a war against Americans who might be critical of the LGBT thing. We have no beef with Christianity or Islam or Judaism or any other religion. We're not interested in telling people of one race that they're good and other people of another race that they're bad. We're not interested in telling people from the working class that they are privileged and that their life is too good and they need to be cut down to size to make it fair. We're not interested in that. We're interested in mobilizing the country to oppose the wars, to build, to construct, and to eventually position the United States as a country that is aligned with the new rising economy around the world. And it's going to be a long, difficult process, but we will build the movement. Now, if you look at all that we've accomplished as CPI in the short time that we've done it, I'm fully confident that we will have great achievements. And I'm looking at some of the shifts and evolutions and twists that are happening in CPI right now, and it makes me understand that we will continue to rise as an organization, and we will inspire others with our work. But I must say, this. Some people look at the Center for Political Innovation, some people with similar ideas, and they say, how do you do it? And they almost study what we do, and they try to do it themselves. They mimic us, often with a lot more money and a lot more resources, often with a lot of boosting on social media. They look at what we're doing, and they try to imitate it. And they don't have the success that we have. And they are convinced that it's a video game and that there's some kind of cheat code. We're not offended, right? We're not offended that they do this. It's a form of flattery, right? That they want to achieve what we achieve. But they're doing so badly because they don't understand. They think there's a cheat code, that it's a video game and there's a little cheat code. They'll learn what buttons to push and then they'll get the same results. Well, they won't. They won't. There's no cheat code to what we've done. There's no secret trade mechanism that has enabled us to do what we did. I'll tell you what the cheat code is. The cheat code is the passion with which we believe in what we are doing. The cheat code is our ability to march forward in the face of opposition. Our cheat code is the ability to not surrender. Our cheat code is the spiritual power that flows through everything we do. We believe what we do deep in our souls. We need this community. We need this organization and this movement to advance. We are not interested in getting an award. We're not interested in expanding our social media activity. We are interested in building the community of people that can march forward. And if you ever come to our events, you get a high, a glowing feeling that you are part of something, that this community means something, that people care about each other, people are working together to achieve a common goal. That's what you get. That you're safe, that you're with a group of people who care about you and want to see you do well. And while we're together, we're chanting, dare to struggle, dare to win. And we're building our movement. And it is that spiritual power, that's the cheat code. That's the cheat code. That's the secret. And you ain't going to be able to replicate that. And you ain't going to be able to, spend a lot of money and make that happen. And if you want to experience that, come do it with us. You don't have to join, just become a friend. Help us build our conferences, help us build our events. If you want to get some of the success that CPI has had, come do it with us. Come do it with us, because we have something that you will not be able to replicate, and you will not be able to copy from a manual. You won't be able to dream up in a laboratory. There's something authentic about what we do here, and people can tell, and people who come to our events can feel it. And if you want some of it, come join our organization. Come be part of our community. Come participate in our activities. But I also want to point out to people that competition is the road to nowhere. Don't compete, create. The universe is vast. It's full of people. It's full of resources. It's full of wealth. And if you get into the mindset of thinking you can only gain at the expense of someone else, that is a scarcity mindset. That is a mindset of poverty and insecurity. And it's also a mindset of people who deep down realize they are not sincere. And I have done my best. And let me just put this out there. I just want to put this out there. Yes, don't compete, create. Go read Wallace Wattles. A member of our community, Tyler, got me to read Wallace Wattles. That stuff is better, but so good stuff. Read Wallace Wattles. I hope we can eventually reprint and republish some of Wallace Wattles' writings. But I don't claim that I'm perfect. I don't claim that I am without flaws. I do not claim to be divine or to be some kind of ideal role model even. I just claim to be a guy who sees a job that needs to get done and is doing it. And if you want to do the job with me, come on board. And if you don't, just don't. That's all I've ever claimed to be. I don't claim to be the savior. I don't claim to be divine. I don't claim to be flawless. I don't claim to be a model, a role model. I just claim to be a guy who sees a job that needs to be done and wants to do it. That's all I've ever claimed to be. And I have been targeted in ways you wouldn't believe. And they have gone after me. There's a million YouTube videos telling you what an awful person I am. They have viciously gone after me in 100 different ways. And I got to tell you, I wouldn't be here if I didn't boil with passion about what I do. I wouldn't be here if I didn't stay up late at night worrying about how this community can expand. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't obsessed with these ideas, with the strategy to build this organization. I would have given up a long damn time ago. If I wasn't obsessed, if I wasn't emotional, if I wasn't fully invested in this, I would have stopped a long goddamn time ago. And I make no apology about being obsessed. And I make no apology about needing this movement to exist for my own reasons. I need this movement desperately, and so do you. I make no apology for living and breathing this movement and ideology all night long. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of people who don't seem to approve of me, don't seem to approve of my personality, don't seem to approve of how obsessed I am. And I'll tell you, those people would have collapsed with just a touch of what I've experienced in terms of persecution. So if you don't approve of me being obsessed, if you don't appreciate how big my emotional investment is, how seriously I take this, you better look in the mirror and tell yourself he wouldn't be here if he wasn't so invested. I'll tell you. And some people just don't get it. I am obsessed with building this community. I am focused on building this community. I think of nothing else, and I get very frustrated sometimes. And I am constantly thinking of how we can advance, and I am constantly trying to resolve our issues. Yes, I am obsessed, and I have made allies for our organization in very strange places. And I have reached out to people I never dreamed in a million years I would reach out to. I've lost friends and I've gained friends in places I never thought I would lose or gain friends. It's been a wild ride. But it is that passion, that commitment that keeps me going. And honestly, I want you to know that joy. I want you to know what it's like to live for a higher purpose. I want you to know what it's like to be part of a community. I want you to see what I see when I go to Russia and I see the young people that are so committed to building that World Youth Festival. I want you to see what I see when I go to Venezuela and visit the Bolivarian communes. I want you to see what I see in the young people of People's Korea and Vietnam. This toxic way of existing in Western society, where it's screw everybody else and you're on your own and people are tearing each other down and people are hopeless. This isn't the only way people have to exist. The toxic culture, the decaying imperialist system is not the only way. There is an alternative. And humanity will push its way through the darkness. And I know that to be a fact. That's why I don't back down, and that's why I don't surrender. And I want to share that passion with you. And I want to share that energy with you. And I want to bring you into that community to help you experience it. And it's hard. And it's not easy. And sometimes you go one way, you realize it ain't the right way, so you have to go back. Right? And it's complicated. And we have been through many twists and turns, but we are always advancing. And I got to tell you, I've started over many times in my adult life. But each time I've started over, maybe it wasn't the immediate result, but each time I've started over, I have ascended to yet a higher plane. I have been involved in more important work. I have made more connections. Each time there is a break. Each time there is a rupture, it leads to something even higher. And breaks and ruptures and splits, they're necessary. They're unpleasant. There's something you try to avoid, but they're necessary. They're necessary sometimes. But you always advance and you always come to a higher plane. And that's what I've noticed. That's what I've noticed. And you have to view the universe that way. Everything that exists is constantly moving toward a higher state of perfection. There are problems, there's turmoil, there's instability, but we will reach a higher plane. We will reach a higher plane. So on that note, I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations, names and locations, names and locations. Who's with us? I'll call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Alex Rickel in Oregon, Dustin Schlesinger in Cleveland, Bob in Troy, New York, Mark Jones in Utica, New York, Alex in Brazil, Chris Bell from Kansas City, Crush Satan in Virginia, Crush Satan in Virginia, Crush Satan in Virginia, Patch in Arizona, St. David's, Bermuda, Joe in Los Angeles. Good to talk to you, Joe. Nate in Kamar, Yakub in Belgium, Singapore, Luca, Jacob in Wisconsin, April and Chris in Salt Lake City, Killian in Milwaukee, Jenny in Cincinnati, Junior in South Florida, Ian Chester in England, Mohsin from Iran, the Mariana Trench, that's deep. Mariah in North Carolina says blessings. Neil Frazier in Hong Kong, Chad in Spokane, Washington, Patrick in Maine, beautiful Vancouver, John McClellan, Denver, Mohsin, Dan in Los Angeles, Alex Neo from Miami, Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Gabby in Chicago. We had a great chat the other night. I posted that on the YouTube channel. David in Cape Cod. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, 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 everybody. I'm so glad to be here with all of you. I'm so glad to be here with all of you. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Now we have a couple super chats that have come in, which is great. Oh, Stephanie in Georgia, welcome. But so when I talked with Gabby the other night, we were talking about children's television programs. She was telling me about Skibbity Toilet and things like that. And I recalled a children's program called Arthur that I watched when I was a child. It was on the PBS show. Well, for those of you who might have watched that same television program, you will recall that there was an episode of Arthur in which the plot involves some kind of band from Finland. And this band from Finland, they're being spray painted around. I don't exactly remember all the details, but regardless, this band from Finland has this song that is quite popular, and it's called the Binky Song. And apparently that song is actually a real song, and it's not called the Binky Song. It's called Matali Jamusti. And so if you have any more super chats, I would appreciate them. I am going to play the song that was introduced on the children's program Arthur as the Binky song, but it's actually a song by a folk band from Finland, and it's kind of catchy, and I remembered it from the Arthur TV program. So I'm going to put on Matala Almusti, the Finnish song from the Arthur program that was introduced to America's children as the Binky song. It is sung in the traditional Finnish language. I have absolutely no clue what they are saying. If you look it up, you can find out, but this is what it is. So if you have any more super chats, please send them in. Super chats help me do the work that I do. They enable me to have this extra bedroom to do my streaming and have my home studio in. They support the work that I do. So if you have any more questions, comments, or whatever, send a Rumble rant or send a super chat on YouTube. And I will start answering questions after we listen to the Binky song, aka Matala Jamasti.
Toisiansa tonki, niinhän nuokin pojat on kun muurin takkaa tullut. Joka tonkin pojan ottaa, se on aivan hullu. Tän kyllä pojat pitäis panna yhteen ajan raakkoon. Hokkimilla ruukista ja vasaralla taakkoon. Meidän kylän tytöt on kun taulumalatuita. Tämän kylän tytöt ne on pieni pallukoita. Matalia mustia kun tervatallukoita. Tämän kylän tytöt ne on matalia mustia. Meidän kylän vaarikset on samanlaisia justi. Mies se on se pikkulikka, pikkunen kuin kissa. Enkä muualla oliskaan kuin poikai kammarissa. Synniksi sitä sanotaan ja syntihän se lienee. Ruveta ja heretä sen kurjan pojan viereen. Ui 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 leikilläni halasi ja suikkasin miesuuta. Heila luuli, et miesuuden eikä sinne päinkään. Uusi oli jo kahottuna ennen kuin vanha jäikään. Älä suuren, älä huoli, älä poika raukka. Minusta saat se hyvän naakan juomari ja laiskan. Heila minun moitiskelee kun mie viina nautin. Vaan ei jaksa halata jos vettää jotun hauki. Tuolta tulee sarja poika voissa onnetonta. Kun ei tiedä kenen ottaa meitä on näin monta. Ui 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 ui
That was also in honor of the great late Gus Hall, leader of the American Communist Party, who was of Finnish heritage. His parents were both born in Finland, and he apparently was quite patriotic to his homeland of Finland. If he was at the store and there was any product he saw that was made in Finland, he would make a point of buying it because he felt very attached to his Finnish heritage. That was a Finnish folk song. There we go. Alrighty, so I see that we have some Rumble rants. So I will answer the Rumble rants first, then I'll get to the super chats. Have you ever interviewed Bruce Gagnon? He's been on RT and he covers weapons in the space race. I have not interviewed Bruce Gagnon. He sounds like an interesting fellow. Yeah, there you go. Would you think of debating someone like Richard Grove from Grand Theft World on communism would be a good idea. He seems to read right-wing conspiracy books against communism. I actually think some of those conversations would be very, very productive. You know, I would like to do that. You know, but I don't want to do debate bro stuff. I want to actually talk to the person, right? That's what I would like to do. I would like to, like I did with Angela McCurdle. You know, she obviously doesn't agree with a lot of what I've said, but we just talked. We actually tried to listen to each other. And that's the kind of conversation I would like to have. Look, I don't like a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of our circles, a lot of anti-imperialist circles are very infected with stupid John Birch Society level anti-communism. And I mean, I'm disappointed. I'm just as disappointed by it as you are, right? I mean, and it's weird because I'm critical of the Soviet Union. I'm critical of dialectical materialism, but I can't deny what Stalin achieved. I can't deny what Mao and all of these leaders achieved in raising their people up. But I can't, you know, I mean, and I don't understand, you know, I mean, if U.S. imperialism is the enemy now, right? And if all the countries around the world that are resisting it are good, why would you somehow find a way to make communism the bad guy? You know, I just, it frustrates me, because, you know, because there is this effort to try and, you know, if you want to see my chat with Andrew McCurdle, it's here. Here it is. Here's the link. Right? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Communist and socialist governments are the ones that are attacked by the United States. So if you are anti-imperialist and you align with the anti-imperialist countries, you should be sympathetic to communist governments, you know. And so it frustrates me, but the real thing that gets down to it is that this is the ideology of the lower levels of capital, right? I've told you it's an anti-monopoly coalition. The lower levels of capital, they're the ones that built the John Birch Society to begin with. They're the ones that built the Libertarian Party to begin with. And they think the ultra-rich are communists. And that's central to their worldview. The ultra-rich are all communists. We're the real capitalists. And the Rockefellers are communists, etc. But my strength is fading, folks. There we go. There we go. If Jimmy Dore, Russell Brand, and Joe Rogan set a date to occupy D.C., wouldn't we have the numbers? Hempcar, I don't even know where to begin with that. You know, I don't know where to begin with that. Hempcar, I'm not going to speculate about tactics and all of that. I am for a peaceful movement to promote anti-imperialism. I think all of those individuals do great work in some areas for all of that. I really love Jimmy Dore. He's great. So, you know, I mean, if they were to, you know, call for some kind of mobilization, I think that would be a good thing. But, you know, I'm not going to comment specifically on what you wrote there. And thank you, Chow Chow Kathy, for becoming a regular supporter on Rumble. So now on to the super chats here on YouTube. All right. CPUSA did a purge on members who opposed the Democrats and the genocide in Gaza. Thoughts? Okay. CPUSA has always been a joke. All right. Now, I shouldn't say that, not always, but since the 50s, CPUSA has been quite a joke. There was a brief period with Angela Davis in the 70s where they had some rising influence and strength. The CPUSA has always been a dead horse. The CPUSA exists, it's on life support so that nothing can replace it, right? And they will never liquidate because liquidating would allow someone else to take their name. And you know, for years, I've been telling people for years that, I mean, I've been hearing for years about, oh, the Communist Party is about to get better, and it never does. And the Communist Party is a couple people's property, and you're not going to be able to play Model UN and get the votes and take it over. It's not going to happen, right? And I've known that for years because people have tried that for years. You're not going to be able to play Model UN and get all the votes and be like, oh, I passed the resolution. Oh, it doesn't work that way, right? This is certain people's property. You know, and like if you've done actual political work, you would know that, right? But people that just do online stuff, they're fooling around. You know, you can't take over the Communist Party. It doesn't work that way, right? The Communist Party is certain people's property. One thing I will say, though, I'll just throw this out there, is that no group is more threatened by the Center for Political Innovation than the Communist Party, right? Why? Right? I mean, the Communist Party never writes hit pieces about anybody because they consider it kind of to be below them, right? They don't acknowledge Trotskyite groups, they don't acknowledge Maoist groups, they don't acknowledge other parties because they consider themselves to be, they're the CP. They just do their thing. They pretend the others don't exist. David Rovick says that in a song. So why did they attack the Center for Political Innovation? Why did this Chris Butters character write a big long screed against us? Why? Because we threatened them in a way they've never been threatened before. And do you know how we did it? By not competing. Let me just tell you, right? That's the thing. We never competed with the Communist Party. All we did was do what the Communist Party should be doing and present it. And we didn't even try to recruit their members. We just did what the Communist Party is supposed to be doing. That's it. We called ourselves the Center for Political Innovation. We're a think tank. We're not a party. And we went out and did what the Communist Party is supposed to do. And immediately, Communist Party members started drifting over to us. You know? And the Communist Party lost their minds. They lost their minds. And that was more of a threat than people have been writing articles against them. People have been going to their events. People have been hitting them over the head and disrupting. No. I mean, you know, and we don't seek to displace the Communist Party. I mean, look, they're always going to exist to some degree or other, right? But we just went out and did what they're supposed to be doing in our own way, in our own name. And we did it in a way where you can even join us. Many of the people who joined CPI when we first got started were members of the Communist Party, you know, and we didn't even really go out of our way to recruit them. They just kind of drifted into our group because they saw, oh, I joined the Communist Party because I thought it would do what CPI did. And that shows you the competitive mindset is not the way to win, right? The CPUSA was so threatened by us. We had such a big influence over its membership that they had to write this hit piece. They had to do all kinds of crazy stuff because we were just doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we intend to keep doing that. We're going to keep doing what the Communist Party is supposed to be doing. And we're just going to keep doing that. And, the Communist Party is not doing that. The Communist Party probably will continue to attract people who think they're joining a group that is doing that. And that's fine, but we're going to keep actually doing it. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, the best way to build your own organization and be successful is to just do what you're supposed to do. Don't compete, create, go and do what needs to be done. And if you go out and do what needs to be done, people who want to do that will drift towards you. And there might be a lot of interference on the channel at first, and it might be hard for them. But if you just kind of go out and do what needs to be done, people will drift towards you who want to do that. And people who don't want to do that won't drift towards you, right? What do? We teach anti-imperialism. We teach socialist economics, etc. We have a community. We do outreach. We're educating people. And that's it. We're not a party. We're an educational group. There's a job that needs to be done, and we are doing it. If we continue to do it, people will come to us who want to help us do it, who want to be part of it, right? We are reinventing our organization right now to be focused on outreach, doing the job of educating the people of America. And it's a tough transition because I think, but we're doing it because we want to do it. And as we do it, there will be more people coming around. So there you go. But I'm not shocked by that. But it's like nothing in that group shocks me. The Young Communist League starts up every few years, and then all the people that are leaders get expelled, and then there's no Young Communist League anymore. And it's the youth wing of the Communist Party. Like the Communist Party, they kick people out so frequently. It's just such a dead organization. It's like that doesn't shock me at all. Right? The Communist Party, they exist to say Republicans are fascists, so you must vote for the Democrats. That's the only reason they exist, and to lobby communist governments around the world to think the Democrats are their friends. Some say settlerism is the main contradiction. I don't know how that could be the main contradiction. My friend, because I mean, everyone here who is not an indigenous Native American is a settler. And so if you think that the main contradiction is like the Native Americans are going to assemble and fight against us, that's completely ridiculous. There are very big aspects of U.S. society that are rooted in the settler nature of U.S. society and the fact that white workers were brought here to kick around slaves and indigenous people. And I talk about that in the manual. Go and read chapter 5. I talk about Jessica Lynch and I talk about Rudyard Kipling and all kinds of stuff. So, settler legacy is a big curse on U.S. society. And I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that. So there you go. Libertarian said Tsarist Russia grew more than USSR. I mean, did you laugh at him? Because that's all that deserves is a laugh, right? It's like, okay, Soviet Union electrified. Soviet Union wiped out illiteracy. Soviet Union brought running water to the entire country. Soviet Union invented space travel. I mean, it's like, Tsarist Russia, Catherine the Great had a lot of great construction projects. She built the Trans-Siberian Railway. I mean, there was construction that went on in Tsarist Russia, but the massive industrialization that went on in the USSR, if you think that's what happened in Tsarist Russia, I mean, that's just, some things are true and some things are not. And if you believe that, I mean, if you're a libertarian, you would need to believe that, right? Because the central plank of libertarianism is, communism just never worked anywhere. You have to be retarded to believe in communism because never has it ever worked anywhere. And a bunch of the people who claim to be communists say that and agree with that. So it makes sense that a libertarian might say something like that because it fits their ideology and there's not going to be any pushback, from most Marxists. So it makes sense, but there you go. Is individualism in and of itself bad? Well, no, that's kind of the contradiction of being human. Humans are collective creatures, but we all have our own individual mind. We all have our own individual body, right? And that human beings kind of negotiating to what degree we are individuals and to what degree we're collective is part of, the ongoing struggle for civilization, right? We all have to restrain our impulses. You can't walk around naked. You can't take a shit in the middle of the road. Right? We all negotiate to what degree or other we will fit in with civilization. I mean, this is, it's a constant renegotiation. So, I mean, I mean, to what degree are we individuals? To what degree are we collective? Right now, we live in a world of radical, unhinged individualism, and it's not working out too well. All right. Why were USSR Saudi relations rocky? Well, you're talking about during the Cold War when the Soviet Union existed. I mean, Saudi Arabia was very, very opposed to the Ba'athist governments the Soviet Union was aligned with. Saudi Arabia was basically created by the British Empire. This House of Saud and the Wahhabis were brought to power by the British Empire as allies. They were created by the Sykes-Picot Agreement. They were pro-imperialist, right? And the Soviet Union was aligned with the anti-imperialists. So, yeah, I mean, they had some kind of relationship, but it wasn't, they weren't very good relations. Saudi Arabia was pro-US, and there you go. Thoughts on Tucker Carlson interviewing Zelensky? I bet very few people will watch that in comparison to the people who watch the Putin interview, because Zelensky's been interviewed everywhere. Zelensky, I mean, it's like you can barely go two days in the United States without seeing him, rambling about something. He spoke to Congress and all of that. I mean, if that indeed has happened, that's probably due to all the criticism and attacks Tucker Carlson has gotten for interviewing Putin. He's saying, look, I interviewed Zelensky also. I bet Zelensky lies through his teeth in the interview. I bet Zelensky, just panders to people's biases. And that's the thing. So, people in America are already primed to hate Russia. So you can get up and say anything about Russia. I was at the UN the other day, and the Washington Post made some like crazy allegation against Russia. And the response of Russian ambassador Nebenzia was, oh, well, the Washington Post said it, so it must be true. I mean, it was a good point, because it's just, they can say anything about Russia. And if you respond to it, they go, oh, are you defending Russia? So it's like they just make shit up about Russia all the time, and it doesn't matter. So, it's just Zelensky will get up there. He'll say all kinds of crazy stuff. Tucker Carlson is an interesting figure. He's certainly not a communist, but he's represents lower levels of capital, dissident ideas. He's a complex figure. So the fact that he would interview Zelensky, not shocking to me. But I don't think that interview is going to teach anyone anything they don't know. And I bet compared to the Putin interview, it will get very few views, unless the internet's rigged, which it is. So who knows? But actual people watching it, everyone in the United States who's ever turned on a television knows what Zelensky has to say. There will be nothing new and exciting about it. There's no revolution without an army. Agree. If by army you mean a mass group of people who are committed to its goals and carrying out its project 100%. But if by army you necessarily mean armed group, look, the state exists as we currently live. We live in a society where there is a state, and revolutions involve a new state. It involves the nature of the state changing, political power changing. So an army, a body of armed men, is a big part of the state. And so a revolution is changing the state. So, I guess it's not a very good phrase, but I guess the point is we need to build a mass movement. If that's what you mean by that, I'm in agreement. All right. Thoughts on David Graeber's theory of bullshit jobs and how communism would fix this problem. Okay, so I haven't read the book on bullshit jobs by David Graeber. I met David Graeber a couple times during Occupy Wall Street. But I guess my understanding is he's arguing there's a lot of jobs that exist in the corporate world and in the nonprofit world that have no real reason to exist, right? People are getting wages and they're essentially turning on a hamster wheel, right? They're not really producing value. It's not like they're in a factory. They're not doing anything socially necessary. They're also not really making profits for a boss. They're just it's like rat race. And to some degree or other, that's always been true. When Lenin described social imperialism, right? And, Lenin talked about the basis of the Social Democrats selling out and supporting World War I. He talked about how they were bribed with jobs, in labor committees and positions, paid staff positions at quote unquote respectable newspapers, and that having kind of an apparatus of jobs that don't make profits for capitalists, that pay very, very good wages, that keep the people who do them very, very busy. That's an aspect of the bureaucrat capitalist state that has always existed to some degree or other. And that, when you look at some of these schemes that the World Economic Forum is dreaming up and all of that, it is apparent that there is discussion of like, how do we keep people on rations? If we have to spend a lot of our money in order to stabilize society, we'll do it. That's really the defining aspect of the Eastern establishment. They believe in degrowth and driving down living standards, reducing the population. And they're willing to spend a lot of money to have stability, right? They're having a huge bureaucracy, et cetera. If that's what is required in order to make sure they stay at the top indefinitely, they'll do it. So I think what's written about bullshit jobs in that book, that there's a lot of middle class jobs. This is when people talk about the what do you call it? I'm starting to fade here, folks. I'm getting tired. When they talk about the professional managerial class, right? Creating a layer of people who aren't producing value, but have to hold on to their paycheck, right? They have to hold on to that paycheck. And that's one thing that people have said is those jobs, those PMC jobs, right? Those bullshit jobs are the most politically correct jobs. They're the ones where if you say the wrong thing, you're fired. You're going to get fired for making an inappropriate joke. You're going to get fired for voting for Trump. You're going to get fired for taking the wrong stance. Those are the jobs where you're much more politically regulated at those jobs than ever before. And that, there is the whole nonprofit apparatus that exists. And that's a really damaging thing to communist movements, right? Most of these communist groups, they're desperate to get jobs, to get their members to get a job at one of these NGOs, one of these labor NGOs, one of these Democratic Party NGOs, and it's really toxic. Excuse me. What's voyeurism, right? Do libertarians approve of voyeurism? What is voyeurism? A minor connecting trench built in a zigzag pattern. I don't know what that is. All right, but listen, I don't know what they want to build trenches. I don't know what that means. But anyway, I got to go, folks. My strength is at its end. So thank you. It's been fun. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.